Hello and welcome to another big edition of Layback with Betfair. Group 1 racing heads to Flemington this weekend, of course headlined by the Group 1 Makybe Diva Stakes. Plenty of other terrific racing around the country as well. We'll preview a couple of Group 2s at Rosehill Gardens, and the men that are going to help me do that are none other than Clancey from Betfair, and one of the up-and-coming trainers here in Victoria, we'll call it, is Reece Goodwin, and he's just positioned himself nicely in the main chair, replacing the Noonan boys this week, mate. Yep. It's good to have you back on board.
I reckon this is where I should be put all the time. I think Tom should be put to the side when he comes back. If he comes back, how is Tom? Do we know how he's going?
I've seen some...
For a bloke on holidays, he's on his phone a lot.
Correct. I actually saw him watching a Benchmark 78 in Ibiza. So I am not sure that's
cheering at home.
Not sure that's what I'd be doing if I was in Ibiza. I'd be turning in a different sort of way, no doubt. How you going, Clance?
Yeah, very well. It's nice. Actually, he asked to have that benchmark race put up on the big screen at Ibiza as well.
I think Calvin Harris cut his set short, I heard. So, how was last week? We went all right, didn't we?
You were good.
A few winners.
You were very good on the group chat as well.
That's how I know.
Yeah.
Like, I had no idea what his tips were, but there was about 14 messages from Nick Foot. That's when I knew he was either having a really bad day or a really good one. It had to be a good one.
Recovering on the couch at home. It's the only thing left for him to do, I think. But it was
no one was replying, so I'm glad they got through, lads. Hey, before we get into this, what is a smorgasbord of group racing at Flemington and Rosehill Gardens, let's get stuck into the lay-bin. There's a couple here. Reece has even added something to the sheet. We might kick off with the Prince of Pakenham. What do you got for us?
Yeah, I pulled something out of the hat here, and I noticed it 2 weeks when I'd done an episode here, and I didn't say too much, and then I caught the episode last week, and I distinctly noticed it straight away before I even heard what you were talking about. And the leg room that you take up is unbelievable. You just stretch yourself out and make this joint yourself. Poor Limo, he was crunched up in the corner. My knees were hurting for him, and I just couldn't help but not put it in the lay-bin this week. You've just stretched out. There's a tiny little table, and all the room being taken up by Nick Foot.
I'm so glad you mentioned this, because I actually had to put the skinny legs on this week, because I didn't even have enough room last week, but there's a little bit more room under
You've never seen someone hosting so comfortable.
Well, there is maybe a little bit of alpha about this too, just letting the Noonans know who runs the show when they come in a bit of thanks for picking that up. I'm quite comfortable. If you sing out if you're uncomfortable, I will do my best. I'll do my best to accommodate for you. Usually Liam buys the coffees here on the way in, which is always great. Didn't get me one today, but that's okay. We won't mention that. But price of lattes, latte inflation, I'm putting in the bin this week. I paid $5.85 for a cow's milk latte Saturday week ago at a cafe, which I won't name the cafe. I won't be going back there. That's a single shot cow's milk latte, $5.85. I'm calling it right now. $5 is the absolute peak you should be for a single shot.
Absolutely.
And you'd want it to be a really good cup of joe.
And this is how long it's been since Nick actually paid for a coffee.
Yeah, correct.
He's not used to it.
That's why he's not happy.
No,
he couldn't believe it. Stung the pocket.
I completely do agree, actually. And I'll come off the back of that and say, you pay $5 for a latte. I think that's pretty normal these days. That's okay. You don't want to be going over that. But then we're finally getting some nice weather here in Melbourne. The sun's shining. You decide you want an iced latte. They do less work. They don't have to froth the milk. They just put it straight in with a cube of ice. They charge you an extra $1. It's like $6.
It's the water in the top up.
Anything that's cold always comes at more of a price.
Yeah,
the refrigeration going through the roof.
Yeah, that's an anomaly, isn't it? Well, we might keep an eye on that. Actually, just get in the comments. Tell us what's the most you've paid for a coffee. I'm putting lattes on watch for the Layback family out there, because $5.85, that's the most I know. I know old Has, the producer of the show, pays about $8 for an oat milk because he's somewhat of a lactard and has something going on there. But that is extraordinary.
Half of the alphabet out during his coffee order.
That's good. He does. Hey, let's try and pay for some of these $5.85 lattes, and let's have a look at this smorgasbord of racing this weekend. We'll head to Flemington, headquarters, and the weather's going to be cold. It's spring. We've been calling spring in the air, but it's 12 degrees. I was going to say dollars. 12 degrees forecast for headquarters on Saturday. The track's currently a soft 5. Equine Genius, what have you set up for in terms of your form? Rail, obviously, in the true. Are you playing good 4 to soft 5?
Yes, and we obviously know how well Flemington drains, but there's not a whole lot of rain between now and Saturday, so you'd expect that the 5 will hold for most of the day. And given there's not actually any rain coming Saturday, which is the only time you really see it deteriorate, I'd be expecting that 5 range for pretty much the whole day.
And that's the key, isn't it? No rain throughout the day, and we should get a pretty fair day of racing. We're going to kick off in race number 2. We're going to preview the bulk of the Flemington card, have a couple at Rosehill Gardens. We'll start with the listed Exford Plate for the 3-year-olds, set weights 1,400 metres. Griff, Berkeley Square and Mr. Mozart are the previous 3 winners of this race. So I'm keen to get involved. Is this a race that you want to have a bet in, Reece?
Yeah, I certainly actually, and I've been a good fan of him. I wasn't with him last start, Wonder Boy. I think you might have been actually. And I think he's just perfectly placed out to 1,400 on a big track. The little concern is the inside draw. He'd want to begin well. He was a little bit slow away first up and copped a bump at Caulfield. He was much better away last time. Still got a lot to learn, this horse, but I think he's on a Caulfield Guineas path, and he probably want to stand up in this race to warrant, really heading towards a Group 1 and being fair in the market. I think Willow being on him is a really good indication that he thinks he's a horse that could probably get to a Group 1. We know Willow likes to find the right horses for these type of races. I think Dawn Service, the way he's trolled, Melbourne Way, blinkers on, it's going to be interesting to set up with him and Daggers because both are probably going to want to find the top. Blake's a very positive rider. Daggers has obviously found the top around Moonee Valley last time. So I think they're the main 3. Detroit City obviously throws a little bit of flavour in there with some different form, but I'm not one to really step into a short price favourite, but I really think Wonder Boy, if he can be right behind those 2 Daggers and Dawn Service and get the room at the right time, I think he's got more than enough ability to win this race.
Clance, do you have an opinion?
No is the short answer. Wonder Boy, you look at that race last start behind Growing Empire, and I think he almost put 3 lengths on the chasing pack of just Stay Focused and Band of Brothers that day. And so you look at that, you think, geez, I want to be on this horse out to 1,400 next start. But then you go back and you have a look at Daggers and how impressive has he been. And I don't think we've seen his ceiling yet. That's the thing. So they're the 2 that I have on top and just keen to watch. I think the winner will come from one of those 2. But because they're both in the same race, I'm happy to shoulder arms here. What about yourself?
Yeah, I was with Wonder Boy last start, 1 by 3 versus Growing Empire, and he closed off well. Growing Empire was in another postcode. But I'm siding with Daggers. I know he had the race shape to suit last start. They did crawl up top at the Valley, but he still got home in the 4th fastest last 200 of the day, running away from him through the line. He's going to love getting to 1,400 as well. Yes, he has led. I don't think he has to get caught up in a speed battle. In fact, from an education point of view, I wouldn't be surprised if Luke Curry just happily let the 2 leaders go if that was the case. And we've seen his big bro, Muramasa, do some damage here at Flemington as well. So I think out to 1,400, he looks a nice type, Daggers, and I'm keen to get involved.
And there was it was a bit weird that they went 1,300 first up, back to 1,200 with Daggers. So you'd think there's only improvement to come there out to the 1,400.
Definitely. Let's have a look at race number 3 now, boys. The listed Makybe Stakes for the 3-year-old fillies, 1,100 metres. The first of the feature straight races there on the day. She's all shenanigans. SP $26, BSP $54, was it?
Oh, right.
Yeah, I think last year. So BSP is the way to go. Beat home Stretton Angel and Skirt the Law there in last year's edition. This looks a pretty open race, Clance.
Yeah, incredibly open race. I think, when you got these big fields of 3-year-old fillies and they're coming down the straight, the majority of which are doing so for the first time, it can be just so hard to find a winner here, and you never know how they're going to handle the straight for the first time. For that reason, I'd be, coming towards those at the top of the market that have had those starts, like your Bold Bastilles and your Driftings, and I mean they're equal favourites at $3.60 now in such a large field. I'm really struggling to get involved at that price. I won't be getting involved at all, but to be or not to be, opened about the $5.50 mark and is already out to $8. If that trend continues and that horse gets out to double figures, it's probably one that I might chime into late, given that she's got some great form down the Flemington straight. It was over 1,200, but beat the likes of Amina that day and did it pretty comfortably. So obviously the class is there, but first up versus Drifting, where obviously Drifting's had a terrific first up performance and win already. So you're weighing up those factors at the current prices, but I'll be shouldering arms at the moment.
Drifting was a really good winner in the Quizette. We know Bold Bastille was only 1.7 lengths off future subsequent Group 1 winner in Mornington Glory at Weight for Age. So you can understand why the market's sort of gravitating towards those. They've got some straight track form as well. Are those 2 the ones you want to side with, Reece, or are you going to look out wide?
Yeah, well, I think because we've spoken about how open this race could be, and a lot of them are first time up the straight. You can throw up so many different variables with these young fillies. So I'm going to side with Symphony of Colour, Matt Ellerton, D Lane, very good combination. Drawn low, so hopefully, I know it's only early in the day, but hopefully closer to the fence. Maybe the 3-year-old fillies will all come down to the fence. And not long ago they were 2-year-olds, and we can see the younger horses just go down to the fence, so they got something to guide them. She only won at Terrain at her first start, but D Lane made the trip out there, which is probably a pretty significant thing, I feel. And then she was second behind Stanley Express of Clint McDonald, so I think goes quite well. And then at her third run in her first prep, she's travelled across to Adelaide and ran fourth in a Group 3 behind Flyer. So going off her recent jump out, she was back wide, come around them on a tight turning track at Flemington, the inside grass. I thought she'd done a good job to win the jump out, and she could have come back a bigger filly, and I hope she has. And I just thought it sort of 20-1, something like that. Yeah. I think it's worth having something each way. A small 1x3, we don't have to get carried away. But yeah, very open race, and it wouldn't shock me to see some of these take a very big jump from what they did last prep as they've grown and developed.
I'm going the same sort of path as you there in terms of ones that have taken big steps, and I'm going a huge price here. I'm going to have an each way bet on number 10 In Her Eyes, who's around $61 on the corporate. She showed glimpses of ability in her 2-year-old season. That Blue Diamond Prelude, she was home in the fastest closing splits of the day behind Hayasugi. She's got a really nice turn of foot. She had a Queensland campaign where she finished down the track. Things didn't really work out for her, but she's trialled up really well. Looks to have furnished into a nice 3-year-old. And I feel like the straight track could suit her with that turn of foot that she has. She's a huge price. You don't have to put much on to get a huge result. So I'm going to have number 10 In Her Eyes. Drifting was the one I actually wanted to be with last week in the Furious Stakes before being scratched and held over for this. And I think it's just a little bit too tight in the market there in what looks an open race. So a bit of value there, Reece, if we can even just land a little bit of a place there with our two bets in Her Eyes and Symphony of Colour. Let's take a look at race 4 now, which is the listed Poseidon Stakes for the 3-year-old boys. 1,100 metres. Archo Nacho, Buenas Noches, and Ranch Hand are your past 3 winners. They sound like Mexican restaurants or condiments or something there. Look, Growing Empire came up on the corpse, your $1.70 favourite, has since been sort of pushed out close to even money now on the exchange, which is really interesting. You've got the likes of High Octane as well, who is generally just seems to not find the best of luck, Clance, in a lot of his runs. Clance, this is a race that you're getting off the fence with and getting involved in finally on the show. Yeah,
pretty keen to. And there's no doubt Growing Empire is the well-deserved favourite. I mean, we're not quite sure the heights that this horse will get to, but I think we can all dream. But again, this is the first time a lot of these, obviously we've got the boys this time, that these 3-year-olds are seeing the Flemington Straight. Growing Empire, just a fun fact, is having his 5th start at his 5th different track so far.
Interesting.
And nothing's really stopped him. So, those really bomb-proof horses that don't seem to worry about the aesthetics and all that sort of thing, they're always good going forward. But High Octane, as you mentioned, is the one that I really want to talk about here. Was again desperately unlucky behind Gatsby's last start. That was in the Rosebud first up. He's been back to the trials since, which I really like. Kept nice and hard fit and absolutely bolted in there. So it was really nice to see it come back well. That Rosebud run could very easily have won that race had he got clear running earlier. And then gets J-Mac on board here as well. Barrier 7. There's a lot of big positives. So I'll be looking to play High Octane in a 1x3 with the chance that Growing Empire is just way too good for this lot and continue going through.
Reece, High Octane, synthetic hoof filler first time.
Yeah, he could have just, it's hard to know. He could have just ripped a plate off and it just took a bit of foot.
Mm-hmm.
So for the nail to be banged in there, had to just have a bit of, synthetic hoof filler.
Is it a bit of a myth amongst punters?
Yeah, I would say so. As long as it's not done too much damage, as long as the horse is, still confident. But all it could be is there's just a spot there where the nail needs to go in to keep it all together. And the horse, you could have just ripped it off coming out of the pool. You could have ripped it off in a gallop, and it's just taken a bit of foot off. So I wouldn't be too concerned about it. I really like the horse, Lamb. From what I saw first up behind Gatsby, I'm convinced he's a real 1,400 metre horse. The reason he got in those tricky spots is because his acceleration wasn't there to get him out of trouble and get him into the right spots quick enough. Interesting that they've stayed to 1100 with a trial in between. I do, obviously, sometimes Flemington can play sort of like it's a bit of a tougher gallop, but I'm really interested to see how he goes on the weekend because I think he's a great betting prospect going forward. Probably won't be backing him here. I think it's an incredibly open race, obviously outside of Growing Empire, doubling downs, one at the track and trip. Aardvark B. Shin's riding it. It's a horse that's won up the straight, obviously trialled well, stay focused. I kicked up for him first up. Thought he was just too aggressive in the run. There was 3 in a line into it. Just before that race started, I heard all the talk. The wind really picked up. And don't get me wrong, Growing Empire was electric, but he had the perfect run, 3 deep with cover, riding behind the speed. The 3 speed horses dropped out. He was the first one to put them away. And then Wonder Boy was great late. But there's a lot of horses in good form here. And I think around Growing Empire, you could probably find some value to place on something. I haven't had a bet. I'm probably going to leave it alone. And I'm just really looking forward to seeing how some of these go.
I'm having a really confident bet here on Growing Empire. I think he's different gravy. I reckon this is close to a job interview here for Growing Empire, where he's going to walk in and it's going to be, is it a Coolmore path or are we going to elevate you to Everest status? And that's the opinion I have of this horse. First up, he was unreal first up. He had plenty of improvement to come. He was eased down over the line. Obviously, Wonder Boy savaged the line behind him. That margin should have been 2 or 3 been huge. Yeah. So the only knock on Growing Empire here is drawing 3. I love horses drawing grandstand side down the straight. That's the only reservation I'd have of making him a genuine M. But I think he's different gravy, and if he blows these away, I reckon he's Everest bound. So Growing Empire for me in the Poseidon.
Do you think he's around the right price now, or
when he opened up $1.70, I thought that's about right. On the exchange, I think we're getting $2 at the moment, Clance, on the exchange.
Won't be after the show, obviously.
Yeah, so no, absolutely not. So $2 I think is a really good price, Growing Empire.
And just before we move on, does anything worry you at all that Mark just settled him down across the line and he stopped so quickly? Wonder Boy was coming very quickly, of course, but he really turned off immediately at the 50 and just came right back to them. Do we read into that at all, or are we just saying no, you switched him off?
We spoke. I had a chat to Mark Zara on air about this on RSN, and he got a little slap over the wrist from the stewards.
Did he?
About that. So
I'm not surprised.
He was looking after the horse. Just you've done your work, but Wonder Boy was still getting through his gears. Yep. So you don't want to see a collision like that.
He had a little whack at Willow, didn't he? He said you had the whole straight to avoid running up your backside. You still did.
That's good gear. I don't mind that. Let's take a look at race 5 now. This is the Lexus Archer Stakes. 2,500 metres. It's a newly repositioned race as well, from Derby Day to Makybe Diva Stakes Day, which gives you entry straight through to the Melbourne Cup race. Have you got
Don't ask me about Melbourne Cup. I don't know much about that.
I was going to ask you about the Archer, but don't get too
I know more about that.
Yeah, okay. Have you got an opinion on the Archer, Reece?
Look, going off Point King's win at Moonee Valley, I know he had the right run. It was a great ride from Jamie, but he should only improve again third up. 2,500, big track. As you just said, this is a ticket into the big one. I don't think they're going to be, sort of peak. Obviously, they're going to want to peak him for the big one, but they're obviously going to want to get him in as soon as they sort of can. And I think he's a great bet. I think a lot of these are most of these, I think, are well past it. Obviously, Berkshire Breeze, disappointing at a short quote last time. He seemed to be trending the right way. Dashing Duchess sort of in the market. I'm not convinced, it's going to be winning or being competitive in many Melbourne Cups. So I think the two you want to be going with are Point King and Berkshire Breeze. And I'm off what I saw with Point King at Moonee Valley. I think he's a great bet.
Just on Berkshire Breeze, jumped SP to $1.45 last time in against Horrifying. Are we just too unforgiving as punters and just throwing that out, going, I know, just popped there, or are we too forgiving of a bad run? Sorry.
Yeah, it's something that we'll broach a couple of times today. Obviously with Berkshire Breeze, but obviously the boom horse prior to Jenny last start. What do you do with her? So I'm always keen to forgive a good horse one run for sure, especially if you can find the reason. And the reason for Berkshire Breeze for me is it's still a low confidence race. I'll say that, but Berkshire Breeze was going so well, and then in the Banjo Patterson, which was the braining win, I think they went 20 lengths slower than benchmark to the 800 last start when it came undone. But back in that race, they were going quicker than benchmark, and that's where Berkshire gets to find his rhythm, and he ends up just being too strong for them late. Whereas, if you're going to go 20 lengths slower than benchmark, you actually bring these horses like Horrifying who aren't as strong as stayers. You let them stay with you, and then it becomes a sprint. And that's certainly not Berkshire Breeze's MO. So I think we'll see a much stronger race this time, and they'll go out and they'll show a bit of dash. So Berkshire Breeze for me is actually a fair bit of overs at the moment at 380, and Point King was the one that you touched on that's been really heavily backed already. So obviously they're both there to win. I think if they do go overdo it a bit up front, Mostly Cloudy's the one that I want to be on coming from the back.
He was great late first up, wasn't he?
And
Could not miss him.
Yeah, and no chance back in the field with that slow tempo. So Mostly Cloudy, the one that I want to be on at, close to double figures for a saver. But Berkshire Breeze will be the main bet for me back to a stronger race.
I'm with you, Berkshire Breeze. I just thought that run last time, they just crawled, didn't they? It was 10.8 lengths outside the class average to the 600 last start. You want to see him rolling a little bit more. Or maybe he was just a touch disappointing as well. Like, it could have been a combination of both. Given a 6-week freshen, won a 1,200 metre jump out at Cranbourne with a bit of purpose too. So I'm going to be forgiving. I'm a forgiving guy.
Just a quick one. You speak about that Horrifying race. Post-impressionist. So he comes out of that race. He's obviously a horse that's going to want a truer gallop.
Yeah.
And he was still quite good late, and he was further back in the field. So he's now second up. D-Lane sticks. I see there's been a bit of market support for him. He's one that I wouldn't be shocked at all that's going to improve as well, as long as they get a good gallop.
He's an interesting one because if he had that only that first up win and then didn't have that disappointing second up win last preparation, you'd go, oh, this is a no-brainer. You get right back to that peak rating, and you'd be truck lighting. But,
that's right.
I mean, that I'm still putting that down to William Haggis first up in Australia, that they just go through the roof. That first one. So
I'm just thinking we forgive the Mar horse, the grey horse, because of how slow they went. So we could probably forgive this horse a little bit too. Even I felt he got warm late. I felt like they go another 100 metres.
It's a fair call.
He was going to beat Berkshire Breeze.
Yep, you make a really good point, mate. Let's go to race number 6 now. The listed Valet Black Caviar. It was formerly the Sofitel. Colino won the race last year, beating home Umgawa and Detonator Jack. This looks quite an even race, Clance.
Yeah. I found this extremely hard, very messy, with very little speed engaged as well. And I think these 1,400 metre contests, when there's very little speed, it comes down to the best run in motion. So it's not one that I'm keen to get involved in. At a very large price, I think Carini is the one that looks to get a really nice trail. Yeah. And it's trialled really nicely coming into this. Barrier 3 should be quite forward. It sits in the first couple of pairs. So $17 looks tasty there, but it's not a race I'm keen to get.
There's a few trap horses in this race, isn't there?
Yep, I'm going through them. I'm like, oh, yep, I've had me money on a lot of these. I'm not about to again.
How's the ROI been?
Yeah, not good. Bandit Snatchy is one of yours previously.
Yeah. No, I think he's about 100.
Long gone.
Yeah,
he's about 100. I'm glad you brought up Carini. I'm convinced Carini's not a 2,000 metre horse or further than 2,000. I think his best form in Australia has been 1,400, 1,600, maybe 1,800. He's placed 3 or 4 first up. As you said, he should get a good run from a low draw. I think if you were going to force me to have something, he would probably be the one each way. I think he's got the ability for it, and he should get the good run. But there's a lot of horses here that, I don't know how many of them want to poke their head out.
I'm going with one here who last time here at this track and trip, SP'd 151, BSP'd 341 or something like that. And it is Macram. Now, we won't get that price here today, guys. All right, listeners, we will not get that price. But we'll still get a reasonable price around Macram. What is he? About $14. So good double figure chance at the moment on the corporates. I think he's trialled up really well. Blinkers go on. I like his draw at 6, can just blend in midfield. And he might just be one that just appreciates getting back to the 1,400 metres at Flemington and can run a drum at, $14. Someone at each way bet Macram. That's race 6, number 7, lads.
Yeah, well, Macram was so good at the start of last prep. I mean, that was a career peak rating. Ended up running past the likes of Jimmy Starr, who we thought was going to be a star at that point in time. But then,
horrible ride, Willow.
But you can sort of mark that up to a freak peak. But then next start ran 4th behind a tissue at Flemington by a length. So managed to hold that pretty well. So no, I certainly wouldn't be turning you off at the double figure price.
I like the terminology freak peak as well. I'm going to start using that in some form references, the freak peak. Hey, before we go into the Let's Elope and the Makybe Diva, we might just go to our What Caught My Eye segment. We'll break it up nicely here, guys. And this, as we know, the US presidential campaigns are well and truly, there is a bit going on, Reece, firing at the moment, Clancey, and there's a fair stack of liquidity in these markets. What are they looking like at the moment, Trump versus Kamala Harris?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. They had the debate yesterday, Wednesday, for those watching from home now. And Trumpy was favourite, $1.95, and Kamala was $2.10 going into it. And obviously with her background, she's a much better debater than Donald, who just sits there and throws as much mud as he can. So there's now 126 million that's been traded on the market. So it's pretty insane amounts of money going through.
About the same as a Pakenham maiden.
Yeah, not far off. Yeah,
and the bank balance.
Yeah.
But what's actually happened during the course of the debate is they've flipped. So Kamala's now into a $1.98 favourite, and Trump's out to $2.08. So great trading opportunities. I mean, you're never going to find better. And we have so many clients come through the doors that are just here for the elections and just here for political markets because, if you do have an opinion on it or if you know your politics at all, it just presents some great back and lay opportunities. So certainly encourage you to get involved if you do have any interest in those sort of markets.
Who have you backed?
I stay out. I'm not a political man. I'm a hugger, not a fighter. So I just
stay what
out.
I love.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he's got high octane versus growing empire. So that might be a little bit of Trump Harris there. Hey, something else has caught your eye, Clancey. You're obviously our form guru here, and you don't mind dissecting the Uruguay form as well. And something caught your eye from overseas.
Yeah, I've been refreshing GTX. I've been refreshing Form King, and unfortunately the Uruguay sectionals haven't come through yet. But just to the eye, boy, didn't this look impressive. Absolutely bolted past them. We'd love to have something like this coming in Australia at the moment, but every now and again, that's why Twitter is such a fun place for racing because you see them from everywhere, and it's just gone bolting past the field.
The horse is called Devassa. I've been searching for it, and I think it's a chance for I think the Caulfield Guineas might be lined up next, actually. I've been looking for it in the Caulfield Guineas market into $2, I think, now, ahead of Storm Boy. So just be careful of Devassa, the Uruguayan, I don't know what we'll call it, but 4 starts, wins by 13 lengths at the 1,000 Guineas over there. Pretty impressive stuff.
And I haven't had this confirmed, but it does sound like it may have been a freak peak at the time.
I think it was a freak peak. That's what's doing it.
They're not even letting the sectionals out.
No,
they're keeping it that quiet.
Let's get back to Flemington now, race number 7. It's the Group 2 Let's Elope Stakes for the mares over 1,400 metres. There's been a bit of a West Australian theme with this race. So Amelia's Jewel, Kiss on All 4 Cheeks, they're the previous 2 winners, and our Safina in the noms here this time around.
The noms.
Oh, in the
not even accepted
sorry,
yet.
Yeah. I'm still
find out today,
I'm still talking about the Uruguayan sprinter. Clancey, this is an open edition again here, another race that presents a little bit of value for the mares. How are you playing it?
Yeah, I'm not keen to get involved early. Looks such a difficult race, as can be these Flemington fields, right? Especially early on when I think almost half the field are first up into this, so we're not sure how they're going. The good thing about Safina, the WA horse, is that she's actually had quite a few trials leading into this, so we know she's going to be there to win. The ones that I am keen in the race or have marked shorter than the market, they've all drawn out, which turns it into a really great race for me and one that I won't play in early. But if Safina, gets Blake Shin on, obviously, so he's gonna do a lot for her.
55 too. Just about his minimum, I'd say, particularly this early in the spring. He might get down to something 54 that he really thinks worth it, but 55 is just about at his limit.
All right, well, that's good enough to hear. But then barrier 13, so you're going to need all the luck in the world. But we're getting double figures. We're $11 early. If I was going to play in the race, Safina would be the one, and Lady Jones was another that I thought was a little bit of value at $23, but staying out early for me.
Yeah, a tricky race. A lot of these first up. I'm not going to have a bet in the race. Everyone was carrying on about Wollombi being unlucky the other week at Caulfield. Go back and watch Fortunate Kiss and tell me it wasn't as unlucky as she was. It drew 1. He was 3 back the fence early. Willow was undecided whether he was holding the fence or not. And he was wandering in and out. She had no momentum at any stage. She basically went to the line untested. And the reason I'm filthy is because I had something on each way. I tipped it on the show. And everyone was crapping on about Wollongby. And I reckon this thing was just as unlucky. And I couldn't believe it. So she's drawn 16 this weekend, which isn't going to help her chances. But I'm waiting for her to find the right race and the right draw. And I think she can be highly competitive. But happy to just watch these mares go around and see how some of these obviously better mares are going to go out and trip once they get through their prep.
Yeah, it's a mighty challenging race, and the form lines, you're seeing New Zealand, Queensland, See You in Heaven across from Adelaide.
Yep.
There's a bit of formception going on here. We need to go deeper. So I'm just shouldering arms here at the moment too. It looks a bit of a. I've never been a big puzzles guy, and that's a tough puzzle. So we'll learn a lot from that. Let's take a look at race number 8 now, the feature of the day, the Group 1 Makybe Diva Stakes, weight for age 1,600 metres. Mr. Brightside, I'm thunderstruck and incentivised, past 3 winners of the race, and all terrific additions. Look, the speed, obviously, pride of Jenny. She's going to set it up here. How she bounces back from her first up run is going to be one of the key talking points. You've got a tissue. Mr. Brightside's going to be chasing. And then, obviously, Via Sistina. Well, she's the one that's come up the short price favourite, the winner of the Group 1 Winx Stakes. And that was a really dynamic win. And she deserves favouritism, I think, off that. But drawing one, is J-Mac going to let him be as far in front as the Queen Elizabeth? It's going to be... The tactics of this race are fascinating.
That's why she's so good for racing.
Yes.
Because she breaks fields open. You're just not sure where people are going to get from inside draws and things like that. You've got traffic to navigate, slow horses because the fields have been so stretched out. A lot of horses come out under pressure. Are they going to leave her alone this time? And who's going to be the one to drag them up to the field? That's why she's so good for racing. Not only is she absolute gun horse, but the things she's done and the things she's going to continue to do is just make us talk so much more about the races she's involved in.
Absolutely. She's box office. How did you land on your map, Clancey, here? Obviously, prior to Jenny in front, but what goes on behind her?
Yeah, and I've tossed and turned about this race, but I'm pretty happy with the way I've ended up. So you look back to last preparation and the All Stakes over the 1400, same as the Memsie this time, went 2.5 lengths faster than benchmark and obviously just got beaten by Brightside. And then you go out to the All-Star Mile second up at the 1600 like we have here, and all of a sudden they go 12.5 lengths faster than benchmark and they get everyone off the bit chasing. And then they go ahead and they do that again to an even larger degree in the Australia Cup. And of course, we know what happened in the Queen Elizabeth. So you go back last start in the Memsie and yes, it's a failure. There's no other way to put that. And they went out 1.7 lengths faster. So very comparable to the All Stakes in the autumn. I think that we've got no doubt that she's going out really fast this time. I think they'll try and break hearts and one of two things happen. She does that or she just hasn't come up this prep. And therefore she'll probably drop out and run a 5th or 6th with only the stayers behind her. So I think there's an interesting way to play this race. I think we're already at $7.50 on the exchange for a horse that has 4 of the best 5 peak ratings in this. So I think if she's
more than capable at her best.
Correct. So if she refines her best form, I think $7.50 is an insane price. So you have the unit there, and then the other way I'll be playing it is I'll also be laying her to place.
She's either going to go one or the other, isn't she?
Correct. So that way, if she wins, you're up 6 units. If she runs 4th or worse, you win 1 unit, and if she runs 2nd or 3rd, you do 3 units. So that's the way I'll be playing it.
Our man over is clocked punting.
This tossing and turning, and he's come up with this. This is great.
Exactly.
Different strategy to what I had last night. I woke up this morning and this one I ended up
changed it all around.
But without a doubt, a fascinating race, and I think the one that everyone's looking forward to this weekend because she does pose just such an interesting strategy. But Via Sistina, funnily enough, I find is just a bit too short, even though she could be anything. Another interesting fact I had about this race is Pinstripe actually rated better than 2 of Via Sistina's 3 ratings that she's run in Australia so far. Yeah, we're getting $10 Pinstripe and Via Sistina is $2.40. I think Via Sistina is one that is being priced up on potential and where we think she might get to, whereas she's nothing wrong with how Pinstripe went last start.
Yeah, and this is a real opportunity for Enver's horse Pinstripe to sort of say, that wasn't a fluke. I am a genuine Group 1 weight for age horse. And, you shouldn't sleep on him either because that was, yes, he had the fitness on his side, but that was a really good win.
Yeah, there was no knock on the win at all. Proper intriguing race. I agree with the Pride of Jenny thing for sure. I think before acceptances came out, there was much as $9 earlier this week, which I think is just crazy. Considering we spoke about earlier, you can always forgive a horse for one bad run, can't you? And if anything, history and stats show that she doesn't go that well first up. She'd never won first up.
Yep.
As much as we thought she'd come back well and possibly even better, she just never won first up. And you obviously got the stats to back it up that she only just went above benchmark first up last prep and this prep, and she didn't win. Now this time they'll probably really look to open things up. And I think the bigger track almost sucks the other riders into thinking, well, there's no panic, to get our spots because we've got such a big track and such a long run in. But that's where she really breaks them up around the corner. Via Sistina, I questioned. I don't know if there's stats to back this up, but I'm sure Chris Waller's horses can fly fresh and then come down a few ratings second up. And I thought Gatsby was
You've been onto this for a while.
So I'm not going to knock Via Sistina at all, but I'm certainly not jumping in at that price from an inside draw in what's going to be a different run race to what she found in Sydney. Obviously, there's going to be a higher pressure race. So I think I'm not ballsy enough to lay her. But I certainly, wouldn't be jumping in at that price. And I'm going to stick with me mate Antino. He missed the start first up. Gets Blake Shin back in the saddle. He was great late, considering he was in an impossible place to win. I felt. I think he's up to winning a race like this, but he's hard to trust. But at a price he's at, I'm happy to have sort of 1/3 play on him. But yeah, great race. Can't wait to watch it. And I thought Pride of Jenny at $9 for the week was a stupid price. I probably should have had something on.
Yeah, I think anyone that bets into this race with a high level of confidence is. Well, they're better than me.
This is going to tell us a lot.
Yeah,
it's going to tell us about how she's come back. It's going to tell us how Via Sistina actually goes.
There's a little bit of up, down about a few runners. So the way I land on it, and I'm not overly keen to bet into the race, but my on top is Mr. Brightside.
I was going to say, is there a knock on him? He's Mr. Resilient.
He's the one that's so consistent.
Yeah.
Look at his past 15 runs. His two worst rating performances were in the Oz Cup and the Queen Elizabeth, which were both over 2,000 at the end of his last preparation. He's returned right near where he was, running Cox plates and things like that in
Romantic Warrior.
Yeah, in his first up run. And yes, he was beaten fair and square by Pinstriped, but with fitness on his side, I think that's a great platform to bounce off. And he's going to be the one chasing the speed, and a Tissue might be the runner that gives him the little carry to the front that he needs
might
to
be
chase.
A Tissue, Mr. Brightside of Via Sistina.
Yeah, and
train like that.
I think J Mac, he's such a competitive animal. He's gonna, if Via Sistina bounces from one, he's not going back. He's gonna settle pretty handy. So there's just so many unknowns in this race, and the best way I find to approach an unknown race is to go with the most consistent galloper, and that's Mr. Brightside. So I'd love to see Pride of Jenny bounce back and win. Saying that, even with my
old mate might get back on Twitter.
Here's a question for you: if you have to choose a runner to finish top 3 in this race, and if you're wrong, you can never watch another race in your life.
It's Mr. Brightside.
Every day of the week.
He's Mr. Consistent.
Every day of the week.
I think he runs a drum.
It doesn't seem to matter what he wins or what he does. He's always forgotten about. He's the underdog.
Yeah.
It was the last one we spoke about.
Yeah, exactly. What more can he do, really?
Saying that, though, go through Pride of Jenny's SP wins. She was $7 out to $11 in the Queen Elizabeth.
We kept thinking she couldn't do it.
The punters constantly just sleep on her.
Yeah.
So, again, this is the type of race that Pride of Jenny turns up, improves second up and wins. Yep. So, fascinating race, plenty to be unpacked. It sounds like there's a good discussion, but it sounds like we're all none the wiser, except Clancey, who's clocked punting with a back lay strategy. So good on you, Clancey. Boys, let's go to race number 9 now. This is another cracking race here. The Group 2, Bobbie Lewis, 1,200 metres. Star Patrol beat King of Sparta and Benedetta in last year's edition. It opened up around $6 the field. There's been a little bit of support for Right to Party, the flashy grey mare or filly.
What about the voice?
Yes. Yeah. Well, she's one of my favourite horses.
We couldn't tell.
Couldn't you? I nearly saw it. I channeled a bit of Bruce there.
Wasn't there? There was something.
I don't know what I was doing. Clancey, what are you doing with the Bobbie Lewis?
The outstretched legs. Hearing himself.
He is very, very comfortable of all time. He's very, very comfortable with himself, isn't he? Very, very difficult. For a bloke that hit the deck last weekend.
Maybe I'll come
he's
back.
He's bounced back.
Literally.
Very, very hard race. And not one I'm keen to get involved in. Especially not knowing where they're going to come down the middle or down the outside or up the inside.
Nothing says it's more difficult than Buenos Noches coming up favourite in this race at $6, then drifting out. So
yeah. And while we're on the topic, great trial, went through the line nicely, but I won't be backing anything early. What I will say is the old boy, the astrologist, Ran a really nice fourth, 2 lengths behind your horse, Right to Party in the Ori Star. And then gets a 2.5 kilo weight swing off Right to Party for that 2 lengths. So one's favourite at $5 and the other's a $34 outsider. So if I was going to play anything at the moment, I'd have something small on the Astrologers, who, as we know, loves the Flemington Straight. But nothing for me early in this one.
What about you, Reece?
I'm gonna, because I'm sitting in this seat, I'm gonna act like the man that would normally sit in this seat, Tom Haylock, and I'm gonna go with our old mate, the Inferno.
Oh.
I'm gonna have a little something each way on him. Hopefully by this time of the day, 14's where you want to be, outside of the track.
Cliff's got him going well at home.
Tommy. Well, the reason
I spoke to Cliff this morning.
The reason I think he might be going so well is Tom's away and hasn't been telling what to do with it.
Yeah, true.
Cliff's actually going to be able to
lead.
Exactly. Yeah, it'll probably lead. 2 jump outs have been good. Latest jump out won well. First up, last prep just ran 5th to Imperatrice, beaten 3.3. Not sure how many of these would have ran 5th in that race. You know, Benedetta, Buenos, not just at their best, probably. Can get a big field up the straight, could just get the right drag up at the outside of the field. And at a price like that, the horse has got the ability to do it, whether he will or not, but I'm happy to find out, and I'll just have something small each way on him.
Yeah, it's a great race. I'm siding with Right to Party. I think she's way too short at the moment. I think you'll get a better price closer to jump. Like it's a genuinely good field here. Right. Like the likes of Sans Duke can step up, who's a straight horse, and a really promising return first up. Stretton Angel, she's another one of mine as well that goes super. I'm still on the floor off, what was that race in Adelaide that she ran second to Benedetta in
up the Jewel.
Yeah, no, it was out wide. Didn't quite get there for Stackhouse. Yep. Benedetta there, Group 1 winner. So like we're looking at a genuinely good field. I think Right to Party, she is the one on the up. There's nothing I love more than a flashy grey back marker mare like her. I just, she's
gravelly.
She's
again.
great.
Getting excited.
She'd be great for racing. Spaced runs, building the picket fence. There's a lot to like. So I will be betting Right to Party. I'll go BSP or wait closer to jump. I think we'll get a better price than $5 now in the Bobbie Lewis boys. Let's turn our attention to Rosehill Gardens. We'll feature a couple of races up there. Another cracking day of racing at Rosehill. We'll look at the Run to the Rose and also the Theo Marks. Group 2 Run to the Rose. Well, this is a belter of a race, Clancey, isn't it? Storm Boys come up a pretty short price favourite. There's some key runners engaged here that will be on Group 1 paths. You've got the likes of Bustling, who's already got a slot in the Everest. You've also got the return of Linebacker, who's well in the market for the Caulfield Guineas. How are you assessing this one, mate? A race you want to jump into?
Yeah, it's a belter, isn't it? I don't have a bet early, but Storm Boy going to be very hard to get past up on speed, especially over that Rosehill 1200, which is just such a tight turn that they just love getting to the front. They've got a really good record there. Bustling, I think, will be close enough, given the racing pattern in the past. But again, a horse that's already got an Everest slot locked in over 1200. This is 1200 already. I don't know if they'll be completely screwed down for this. So hard to consider taking that $5. And then, of course, you've got a Node as well, who's well out in the market. But these are the sort of races that a Node's just going to go to the front and knows that it doesn't have the class to stick with these. So the only way it's finishing top 2, top 3 is by getting to the front and holding them off. So I think there'll be enough pace in this to suggest that those that coming from the back are going to have every opportunity. So if I was to have a bet in this race, I'd be around the likes of Traffic Warden, who's trialled really impressively, but one that's right out in about $34 now for the Snowden Yard is Fearless. A horse that didn't have the best of luck in the 2-year-old campaign and has come back, trialled really impressively, and looks to be running over the top. I think look for this horse over the 1400, 1600 getting out there, but will be coming home really strongly. And at $34, I think could be a little 1x3, but not to get too heavily involved.
Yeah, Bustling's an interesting one. Like, there's been a bit of a move for Bustling, and 1200 metre kickoff point, and Glance made some really good points with already that slot in hand. What would they want to be seeing from Bustling in a race like this race?
Look, he'd still want to run very well. As much as he's probably not going to be completely peaking, I feel as though they've showed a little bit of intent in his trials. His first one, they were probably pretty quiet, but the most recent one I saw, I probably only saw the last 200, but he was given a squeeze and given a nice hit out. Soft draw, you just assume he'd want to park somewhere up behind Storm Boy. I mean, I was sort of off Stormboy leading into his first up run, but he was ultra impressive. Adam dropped the stick on him, so he had to go hands and heels, and he still drew away, and now he's got fitness on all these horses. So he's probably a bet realistically, but a horse I love is Linebacker. Really looking forward to seeing what he does his prep. Draw 9, he'll obviously go back, but he looks a really exciting prospect. I thought he's trialled well, even though over the shorts, good horses should trial well no matter what. But mission impossible from the draw, I'd say. But he's the one I want to watch and see if I can take him out of the race and find him over 1400 next time.
He's my Caulfield Guineas bet Linebacker.
Beautiful.
I'm really keen. Gets $12 futures at the moment, boys. I think he's a sleeping giant off those runs. Burst broadsiding in the Champagne, just 1.5 lengths off him, and we're talking about broadsiding for Cox Plates.
Yeah, that's right.
He's so untapped, 3 starts, so keen there. I think he finishes off well. Stormboy for me in this race, $2. Look, I was with him first up as well. I've always had so much time for him. I've been Team Stormboy all the way through, and he returned very impressively, as you mentioned. Has the fitness edge now, and he just puts himself into races. Like he's just no fuss, and you love seeing that. And he's a big boy, and he's sort of furnishing and growing into his body as well.
That was the thing. He was just bigger than him as a 2-year-old, but he's still bigger than him now.
Correct.
So he's scary.
I truly feel that he is going to be a 1,200 metre horse. So I don't think we've worked it out yet, and they're going to try their hand, and his favourite already in Guineas markets for the mile. But I truly think he's got all the attributes to be the sprinter of that sustained speed, up on speed, catch me if you can. So I'm keen. I like that he stayed here, or just gone up to 1,200 metres from the 1,100. And I'll take the evens around Stormboy. Let's take a look at race number 9 now, the Group 2 Theo Marks Stakes. This is another cracking race at Rosehill Gardens. We're certainly not short of those. Celestial Legend returns here for Les Bridge. Speaking of big grey flashy horses, Reece, bit of a grumble in the throat there. He's your favourite here. There's a lot of runners returning that will get better out over further as well, Clance.
Yeah, I think that's the point we've got to focus on here. You got 10 of the 15 runners coming in first up with bigger things in mind. So I'll be targeting those who are trying to win this race and showing a bit of intent. I think it's really hard to have strong opinions here with the 2 emergencies. They're actually the 2 I've got shortest in the market. Yeah. So both Wind Chat and Boom Talk. If they run, this is a very, very different race to if they don't, especially. You're going to have Bases Loaded, drawn 15, who's shown some incredible intent in its trials so far. And without Wind Chat in the race, it becomes a much easier race for Bases Loaded. Having said that, Bases Loaded second favourite at $5. Celestial Legend is favourite at $3.90. Celestial Legend's the star. We all know it. But first up, 1,300 unsuited by the handicap nature here being top
bigger
weight.
Fish to fry.
Much bigger fish to fry. I think.
Not silly Les Bridge either.
Yeah, I think $3.90 is a terrific lay opportunity here. I think you get much better closer to the jump if you do want to back him, but I'll just be laying there. And Bases Loaded doesn't have the ratings to be considered favourite in this, so I'm very happy to oppose that horse early and just price up off that dazzling front running trial and made the rest of them look poor. It's like a lot of horses can do that in trials, but doing it on game day is a lot tougher. Wind Chat and Boom Talk are the 2 I want to be with, presuming they're in the race. So I'll hold back on my official plays until we know what the final field is there. But keen to oppose those 2 favourites and back the Queensland horse Boom Talk and Wind Chat first up.
I'm along the same line as you there. I'm going to back Wind Chat if Wind Chat gets into the field with the 53 kilos. 3 trials in preparation. It's the here now type setup for David Pfeiffer. Absolutely. And the horse goes good. Jay Ford's been with him for all 6 career wins. It looks a real set play. So I'll bet back Wind Chat, and I'm going to lay Celestial Legend too for those reasons. Like just bigger fish to fry. Going to get better out in trip and when with fitness on side. So I'm going a hamburger with a lot. What about you, Reece?
No, nothing from me. Happy to leave this race alone. I couldn't find too many angles, and a lot of them, obviously, I got better targets ahead, and I'm just happy to watch this one.
It's a pretty good segue into our lay streak for this week. Liam, I think you're back to $100.
Back to
Reece is back to 100.
The beauty of last week is
$209.46.
I'm trying to think who I even laid 2 weeks ago.
Obviously won, because you're back to $100.
Or place.
Yeah, or place.
Might have laid at the place.
You could have done. either way, you lost. Let's
Just check.
He loved
check
that.
where his leg room
Yeah,
is.
he'd love to say that. Either way, you're a loser.
Yes. Celestial Legend for me, just continuing on from our chat there in the Theo marks.
Yeah, and that's perfect timing. I'm also laying Celestial Legend, but I will lay Bases Loaded as well in the same race.
Okay.
So take them both on for the low streak.
Like that. And Reece, who's your
I'm
lay
going
streak?
to revert to what I said earlier, and I'm going to have the balls to do it. I'm going to lay Via Sistina.
That's good. I
Love
like
that.
I love a Group 1 lay.
Yep.
I'm
The
0
odds.
from 1 on laying Via Sistina this
That's
season.
right, yeah.
So
See if I can get
I
it.
like that you're going back. This is a good team effort.
I do weigh a bit more, so I might be able to slow it down.
Yeah, nice. Hey, let's go around with our best backs for the weekend. Clance, who are you most confident with? Who's your key player?
Well, High Octane, the place is my favourite of those we've touched on so far today. But if I was up for my life and I needed to find a winner, I love the look of Jolie Star in the Shirako Stakes, the Group 2. She's absolutely freakish first up in the show county. And if she runs to that, she's bolting in against these.
Freak peak.
It wasn't even it probably wasn't a freak.
Will be this weekend.
Yeah. Look forward to another. It was funny when we were talking earlier and Reece is saying, Chris Waller, that second up syndrome. I'm a bit worried about that.
Yeah, this is it.
I was like, well, wait till we get to the best
I've got
later
another
on.
lay bet.
Yeah.
So Jolie Star, best winning chance for the weekend. I hope, and actually she's still a 90 still. And I got to make $1.50, so got to be a good
Yeah, well, I'll wait till she gets backed in more.
Yeah.
yeah.
What about you, Prince?
I'm going to go Flemington race 2, the Exford Plate. I'm going to stick with Wonder Boy, number 1, inside draw, 1400 big track. All the reasons I outlined earlier in the talk. So yeah, I'm quite keen on him, and I think he can be Caulfield Guineas bound.
Yep, I'm going to the Poseidon Growing Empire different gravy best back
Bit of
of
pepper
the
gravy.
weekend. Yeah, the mushroom sauce gravy, all the good stuff. Hey, been a lot of fun today.
Yep.
This ship just runs so
Yeah,
smoothly
I
without
love it.
Tommy.
Yep.
The irony is he's on a ship. He's still cruising around Malta.
While doing form.
While watching Benchmark 78s. So good on him. Boys, all the best across the course of the weekend. Do you have any runners coming up?
Yeah, off to Royal Donald Saturday. I've brought a maiden horse, and there's these particular maidens where they're a reverse ballot, which means the worst horses get in first.
Oh.
And mine's had a lot of goes, and it's first run for me, and I'm hoping I've found the
What's it
weakest
called?
Spiritual Thinker.
Okay.
I reckon I found the worst maiden in Victorian history,
Okay.
and that's my tip.
All right.
Pay the same amount down there
And
at Donald, I think.
Exactly, that's right.
We
And if
go
you
from
don't,
the Group 1 Makybe Diva Stakes to the worst maiden
yeah,
in Victoria.
honestly,
here
if you
on
have a
Maybank.
look at it, you will say you couldn't possibly ever bet in this race.
Yep.
It's horrific.
Okay.
It's something for the listeners and viewers to have a look at. The
It's-
worst race in Victorian maiden history.
It sounds like degenerate areas.
Yep.
I love it. Clance, all the best across the course of the weekend as well. Listeners, viewers, enjoy Makybe Diva Stakes weekend. It looks to be a terrific weekend of racing. We'll be back next week on Layback with Betfair.
Chances are you're about to lose. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.